Welcome to our lecture on early human development. So we're going to talk about how we grow after an egg is fertilized, and so how the cells divide and what happens when the cells start dividing. And then we're just going to touch on a quick introduction into stem cells. So what are stem cells? Before we move into the lecture, I wanted to show you a quick video of actual photography of uh, fetuses developing in the womb. So let me just play this. So this will just be a few minutes of interesting video.
At 4Ocean, we understand.
All right, so that is actual early human development. So those are actual photographs of babies developing. And so that is what we are talking about. So here we are when we've talked quite a bit about zygotes, or when a sperm fertilizes an egg. That fertilized egg, we know is diploid, is going to be a zygote for 1 to 3 days. Then those cells are going to divide and divide and divide until they're a ball of cells. And that's at the second week. They are called a blastula at 2 weeks. And a blastula looks, let me see if I can find a picture. This is what a blastula looks like right here. So it's a big ball of cells. So identical to the one that first divided, or the zygote. They have all of the same DNA. At the 3rd week to the 8th week, you are considered an embryo. And what happens is many people don't know that they're pregnant until implantation. So what happens is the blastula will implant in the uterus wall of the mother, and that's when the mother will start showing signs of being pregnant. So that's called implantation. And from that, where it implants in the uterus, that's where the baby starts to grow. And so from 9 weeks on, that is considered a fetus. And so these are the beginning steps here of our blastula and our embryo, and so forth. So as we know, when a sperm fertilizes an egg, we start out as a single cell or a zygote. We know that we have, let me grab my pen here, 23 chromosomes here in a gamete and 23 chromosomes here. And we know that this is a haploid cell, H, and this is a haploid cell. And then this is a zygote. So it has, fertilization, a sperm fertilized an egg. And then we have our zygote, which has 46 chromosomes. It is this cell that is going to then divide by mitosis and divide again. So that cell becomes 2 cells. It then becomes 4 cells. It then becomes 8 cells, and so on and so on. Let me just turn off the pen. And so the cell divides and becomes a ball of cells called a blastula. And so this is a picture of a blastula. So this is all of those diploid cells that have the identical genetic information from that zygote. And so it is growing and growing, dividing and dividing. So where a cell is placed in this mass, so right here, it's going to determine what cell it will differentiate into. So the DNA in your nose is the same DNA in your muscle cells, is the same DNA in your brain. But some genes turn on and some genes turn off. And this is a muscle cell gene will turn on and it becomes a muscle. And this is a brain cell gene will turn on and it becomes a brain cell. And so what type of cell it's going to differentiate into, so differentiation is the process by which cells change shape and become specialized. So specialized, like it becomes a muscle cell, or it becomes a skin cell, or a brain cell. So it starts out as this like blank cell, and it specializes into something specific. And so it depends on where that cell is. Where that cell is in the blastula is going to determine what it's going to turn into. So here, this outside layer of cells here, this is going to turn into things like your skin. This yellow part right here, these are going to turn into things like your lungs. And this green one is going to turn into things like your visceral organs, your heart, your intestines, your stomach. Right here, this purple, this is the inside. So this is going to be the tube that your food goes down. That is going to be your esophagus, the insides of your small intestines, your large intestines. So that's going to be that inner layer of skin. So all of this depends on where the cells are. This is what allows a cell to change into something specific, or what directs it into turning something into something specific. So cells start out as blank slates. This is called a stem cell. So here is our blank cell. So at the beginning here, these are all blank cells right here. They aren't muscle cells yet. They're not brain cells yet. They're not blood cells. They are blank cells. So we call those stem cells. They're going to differentiate into different things, like skin cells. I guess that's an osteoblast. That's a bone cell. A neural cell, that's a neuron, which is a sensory cell. A muscle cell, white blood cells, and red blood cells. All of these things are going to start out as these blank cells, And then, depending on where it is in the body or where it is in that blastula, is going to determine what it differentiates into. So there's a couple different types of stem cells. A pluripotent stem cell. So that's a big word. Let's underline that, bold, and make it bold. So here, that's a big word. Pluripotent stem cells. There is another word, aka embryonic stem cells. Embryonic stem cells can differentiate into any other type of cell. So here, if we look at this ball of cells, these are completely blank. Some of these cells are going to turn into bone cells, some of them are going to turn into muscle cells, some of them are going to turn into skin cells. They are completely blank. They can turn into anything. That is called a pluripotent stem cell or an embryonic stem cell. Now, these are often the types of stem cells that are used for research and for research. And so because they can turn into anything. Multipotent stem cells. This is another big word. Let's underline that and make it bold. These are called adult stem cells. So by the time you are born, you no longer have any pluripotent stem cells. All of your cells, well, most of your cells have differentiated into what they're going to become. You're going to have eyeballs, you're going to have skin, you're going to have muscles. So that is already differentiated. But you do still have some multipotent stem cells when you are born and as an adult. And so multipotent stem cells are called adult stem cells. Even if you're a baby, you have adult stem cells. Adult stem cells are much more limited into what they can differentiate into. But you have them because your body has to heal, because your body is constantly making new tissue. So it needs new cells. So here, actually, let me go back. So here we can see where your red blood cells come from. They come from your bone marrow. So in your bone marrow, that's where your blood cells come from. So your bone marrow contains stem cells that can turn into red blood cells or white blood cells. However, they're much more limited. These stem cells can only turn into blood cells. They cannot turn into muscle cells. They cannot turn into brain cells. So they are very limited into what they can turn into. So that becomes you have fewer types of stem cells as you get older, and they become much more limited into what they can turn into. So for example, multipotent stem cells in the bone marrow can differentiate into, let me move this up, into different types of blood cells. And multipotent stem cells in the brain can become nerves or nerve cells. So there are some things in your body, like your pancreas and your liver, they don't have any stem cells. There's nothing that can turn into your pancreas or your liver. But other parts of your body do have stem cells. So if something goes wrong, they can be fixed. But there are some parts of your body that don't have stem cells. So if something goes wrong, we can't use those stem cells to help fix those parts of the body. All right, so that is our introduction to early human development and stem cells. I hope this was informative. Have a great day.